H5 is live.
Well then.
800 is live. Last but not least, 100 is live.
See how spotty the inside of the guitar is?
Yeah.
That's somebody's blood.
Oh boy.
It's not my blood though.
Did you have a fight?
I lent it to a guy in Belfast who was some sort of... He was an absolute lunatic.
He was obviously a leper.
He was playing with like a 60, just a super thin gauge pick, and just absolutely crushing the guitar. He was just... And I'm like, just relax, dude. And he cut himself open like a couple of songs into his set and kept on playing and bled all over my guitar. I went out the next day, I bought rubbing alcohol, rubber gloves, cotton swabs, and I, as best I could, cleaned up the guitar. Inside and out, it looked like it had been in a fight with Rocky Balboa. Yep.
Boys, oh boys, oh boys, oh boys, oh boys.
Oh, actually, you know what?
I'll
just keep my...
Well, why don't we just do that?
Well, there you are.
That's a
Tea
nice
with
cup
the
of tea.
lads. Hey, everyone.
Hi.
That there would be Adam, and I'd be Leslie. And we'll be Tea with the lads, because it even says so right behind our necks here. And we've got our tea. Hopefully you've got your tea, and we're going to play some music.
It's going to be great.
It's a surprise, surprise. Today is a music day on Tea with the lads.
Any day with music is a good day.
Now, where do we start with this song, man?
Boy, I tell you, I'm excited about this one. This is yet again from our ever-growing list of requests. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Honestly, we don't like to have to think about these things. And if we have a list of great songs to pull from, it makes our lives so much easier. So thank you. This is from a gentleman from Kildare, I believe.
That's correct.
Richard from Kildare, if you're watching, cheers. Thanks for this. We're going to do your song for you. Go on the Lily Whites. We're going to do Thousands Are Sailing by the Pogues from their If I Should Fall From Grace with God album.
Which is, I mean...
Classic.
The one, right?
I think so.
If we had a list of, hey, where do I don't know the Pogues, where do I start with the Pogues?
That would be a good one. I would say that or Red Roses for me, the first album.
Yes, sure.
You know, but absolutely. I mean, this has got fantastic material on it. Thousands Are Sailing is one of my all-time favorite Pogues songs, and that's saying something because I'm a huge Pogues fan, and we, in my band, play at least a dozen of them. And
you're a Pogues cover band.
Yeah, basically.
Some nights.
Basically. Yeah, you know, I mean, if that's what people want. But
absolutely, sure.
This is a great song because everyone, of course, associates, if you know who the Pogues are, then you associate them with Shane McGowan. If you don't know who the Pogues are, they were the band. Without the Pogues, there'd be no Flogging Molly, there'd be no Wild Colonial Boys, there'd be no bands would, you know, or at least they were the first band to take rock and punk music and fuse it with Irish traditional music.
Somebody else would have done it, but they wouldn't have done it half as well.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. The Pogues are something special, man. I mean, they came onto the scene in the very, very early 80s, led by Shane McGowan, who is this crazy English kid, born of Irish parents, grew up in London. His parents, I believe, are from Kilkenny. And he is an absolute genius, just a genius of a songwriter, and of course, you know, kind of a mess of a human being.
Kind of in a despite where he's from, kind of in the very typical heroic romantic version of an Irish genius.
Okay,
like if you meet him at the bar, he's just like some crazy old fool.
Yeah.
In the corner of the bar that looks an absolute mess, but then when it comes to creativity, has got it in spades.
Have you ever seen the If I Should Fall From Grace documentary about Shane McGowan? It is really something. You should watch that. Everyone should look that up. I don't know where you can find it, but it's a documentary on Shane and the Pogues, but Shane really, and it kind of tracks him and his handler lady, who's now his wife, but at the time was literally in charge of, you know, shepherding Shane around the place.
I married my handler lady.
There's a great scene of him mooing at a cow in a field in Ireland.
Probably in a really creative way.
Yeah. Locally, here's a Pogues story for you. The Pogues played. Actually, no, I'm sorry. The Popes. Shane McGowan's band after he left the Pogues.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
He left. Slash was fired from the Pogues. Depends on who you ask. Shane McGowan put a band together called the Popes, and since he wrote so much of the material in the Pogues, they just played that material on the road. And he played a local club here in town called First Avenue, which is even internationally known because that's where Prince filmed Purple Rain and all that stuff. But Shane McGowan and the Popes came, and right across the street from First Avenue, the venue, is an Irish bar that Leslie and I are both intimately familiar with called O'Donovan's. We've both played there millions of times.
Cut my teeth there.
Yeah. And the owner is Dermot Cowley from Drogheda in County Louth in Ireland. And he got hooked up with Shane somehow. Shane and the Popes had played, prior to playing Minneapolis, the night before they had played in Milwaukee. And Milwaukee's, I don't know, about 5 hours by car from Minneapolis. But the band was flying around, but the airline wouldn't take Shane. They wouldn't put him on. They were like, no way.
They didn't recognize his genius.
So they left the show the night before, so Shane got into town early and somehow hooked up with Dermot, the guy who owned O'Donovan's, and Dermot went onto the bus and hung out with Shane McGowan all day before the show. And
Dermot could occasionally get himself into trouble.
Oh yeah, just occasionally, right? He told me Shane had a bottle of tequila under his arm, cradling it like a baby. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's not letting go of this bottle of tequila. And he came in to O'Donovan's later on. I was in O'Donovan's. Shane McGowan got up on stage in O'Donovan's, the little stage, and did karaoke. And it was incredible. He did like show tunes.
Yeah.
He did Gershwin.
Yes.
And
Irving
Berlin songs.
I have either heard a similar story from somewhere else. You and I have never spoken about this, so I must have heard it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
If it wasn't the O'Donovan's one that you're specifically talking about, I've heard people talk about him doing show tunes somewhere else.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right, well, there you go.
So like a secret passion.
That's what he's into, I guess.
There it is.
I go to other towns to play in Irish bars, and I go to tiki bars beforehand. Shane McGowan, he goes to the local karaoke.
Yeah, he goes to the crooners.
He's up there doing Sinatra, and when he's singing, he's fine, and then he just falls off the stage, because he's completely out of it. It's sad, but
genius though.
Absolute genius. He was blessed with so much innate talent. It's just an absolute wonder.
Yeah.
But all of that about Shane McGowan, he didn't actually write this one.
No, he did not. Phil Chevron wrote this one, the guitar player.
The strength of the Pogues. They got more than one guy who can bring it, songwriting-wise.
And I love this tune just because it's the song's just a trigger for me.
Okay.
Because I have so many.
This is talking about you.
I mean, it essentially is, because it's not. It's talking about all of the emigration coming across the Atlantic. It's not just talking about one specific era or period of time. And there's just so many lines in it. Talking about Ellis Island. Have you been there?
Yes.
You've been to Ellis Island?
I have.
If you're ever in New York, going to Ellis Island and checking out the museum there and checking out the lists of people that are obviously your family. And it's just, learning, when I first learned about that, you basically got off the ship after being at sea for weeks and just literally coming up a staircase with barely anything with you, and they don't have a chance like nowadays to really give you a good checking over to see if you're gonna for me to emigrate, we had to go to a doctor and we had to get all sorts of immunizations. Way back in the day at Ellis Island, all they had was look at you.
Yeah, they did that in the line
and check you out.
Open your mouth.
Do they look sick?
Yep.
Are they jaundiced? And whatever. And they one of the because it talks about it in the song. One of the last lines of that first section before the first chorus is. And I never even got so far that they could change my name, because
they booted him.
A lot of times you get to the top of that staircase and they'd ask you what your name was, and at whatever thickness of accent you had, They would just scribble something
There's
down.
another Smith, another Jones coming in.
And that resonates with me because Mrs. Rich's family is called Wick.
Okay.
But their Finnish name is not that at all.
Okay.
Their Finnish name is Vikkes.
Okay.
Which is like Vickis or
Yeah.
something along those lines. And the guy just went, yeah, well, now you're Wick.
Yeah.
And that's why there's, that also explains a lot of the different versions of Macaulay. And it can be spelt numerous ways.
Yeah.
And that's why, because they just didn't take the time. So that line really resonates with me. When it talks about, so the line where it says, where the hand of opportunity draws tickets in a lottery, the reason I'm here is because of that lottery.
Yeah.
And it was such a Ireland and Northern Ireland included in that had a disproportionate amount of these lottery visa opportunities than anywhere else. There was like 100,000 in the world handed out, and like 40 at its peak. It was like 48,000 were handed out to Irish and Northern Irish people.
Speaks to the.
And I benefited from that.
That's awesome. I mean, that's as deep as the relationship between the countries is.
Yeah.
And in the Republic of Ireland, there's two people that live in Phoenix Park. The president of Ireland and the American ambassador. Honorary Octus is there, and the U.S. ambassador's residence is in Phoenix Park because that's a symbol of that.
I think it's
relationship.
I think it's a different system now. And if it's something very similar, it's definitely not as disproportionate. It's much more even throughout the world. The other thing, sorry to hijack the entire talk, but the other thing that resonates with me with this is talking about not even just America, coming to America, but just emigration anywhere from people from the island of Ireland. And my aunt was one of the, what they call a tenpoundpom.
Oh, I don't know that phrase.
So tenpoundpom was basically there was opportunities right after the war, but basically it cost you £10 to emigrate to Australia because they just needed bodies.
Yeah.
They needed people, or at least they promised jobs and homes and all of that sort of thing. It didn't work out that way for most people when they got there. There wasn't really all the opportunities they thought they had, but a lot of people moved to Australia basically on that £10.
Okay.
Which is like, I don't know, in modern money, what is it?
Couple $100.
Couple of $100.
Yeah.
It's not a lot.
Not a lot to move
and so my
all the way
aunt,
across the world.
my aunt emigrated in the 50s to Australia. And that's represented in Kenneth Branagh's most recent movie, Belfast.
Okay, sure.
Where the family are, they ultimately moved to England, but they've got the pamphlets.
Okay.
Because there was lots of those pamphlets basically just saying,
That's
you
incredible.
can emigrate and we will pay you to do it. So that's all. So all of this, the whole song just.
Which is probably why the song, is so popular and resonates with so many people. I mean, you've just described the experience that so many people either went through directly or, have modern people have relatives who went through
Sure.
it. So it resonates with everyone.
Yeah.
At least in this country. Everybody came from somewhere else here, which is why, if I could speak to this every time when I go to Ireland, people are always like, why do you Americans always call yourself Irish? You're not Irish. You're American. Your great-grandfather left Ireland, whatever, blah, 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 blah. What you as Irish people have to understand is, in America, everyone came from somewhere else, unless we're talking about the Native Americans.
Yeah.
And there's only a very, very small, percentage of the American population can claim Native American heritage. But in America, the vast majority of people came from every country in Europe, every country in Asia, every country all over the world, and those ties to those places, even if they are several generations removed, are still live on here because you're always described that way. I grew up being described that way, and I'm not even that old. My mom, is Irish, and her family was Irish from the time immemorial, just like people born in Ireland or whatever, and those roots were very, very real to them because their communities stayed together here, and they wanted to retain some pride in where the family came
That's
from.
what I was going to say, is that because of the way a lot of people were treated when they emigrated to any country, but America's a real good example. They stuck together, and so therefore there were pockets. So that Irish heritage that people feel and still feel, it's because it's been so strong. So, sorry, but you do feel Irish.
I would say that if you want to split hairs about it, then the Irish American experience is as unique as the Native Irish experience.
Absolutely.
And it is distinct from the Italian American perspective or the Chinese American perspective. It's different. You grow up with a different set of traditions in your household. You celebrate things a slightly different way. Everybody blended together to create America, but they still retained the legacy of where they came from. And so I think, and I don't play this up, and I don't wear a flat cap in Ireland, and I try to blend in, and I try not to be loud American
Tries
idiot.
to blend in.
Don't you have Bud Light here? I'm not that guy, and I don't like that guy, but at the same time, I think it's a sign of respect, and it's a sign of, they like you, they want to be like you, they want to be Irish, and that's something to be proud of as an Irish person, I think, is that there's this country across the waves that contains so many of these people who want to emulate you and your
it contains so many of the traditions that you still had, even if you're multiple generations down the line.
Right.
Your families retained a lot of those traditions.
Absolutely.
And then a good point to kind of shoehorn in one of the reasons that I absolutely love Irish Fair of Minnesota is because it so heavily leans on the culture rather than
plastic padawackery.
I love that.
The presenters of the Irish Fair, live it and take it very seriously and want to present the culture in its best light.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that doesn't include green beer and stupid crap. So,
plus, I don't think St. Paul would last to die the Mississippi.
That would be cool, wouldn't it? I mean, it's so muddy brown, they can't just make it pretty for a day.
It's kind of muddy, brownish green. Anyway, you can see that we're both fired up by this song and its subject matter because it means a lot, and we're gonna give it a whirl.
Let's give it a whirl. Let's play it. The island, it is silent now, but the ghosts still haunt the waves. Torchlights up a famished man whom fortune could not save. Did you work upon the railroad? Did you rid the streets of crime? Were your dollars from the White House? Would they from the 5 and dime? Did the old songs taunt to cheer you? And did they still make you cry? Did you count the months and years? Or did your teardrops quickly dry? I know, Sissy, 'twas not to be. On a coffin ship I came here, and I never even got so far that they could change my name. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean to the land of opportunity, and some of them will never see fortune prevailing across the western ocean. Their bellies full, their spirits free, break the chains of poverty, and they'll dance. In Manhattan's desert twilights, in the death of afternoon, we We stepped hand in hand on Broadway like the first man on the moon. And the blackbird broke the silence as you whistled it so sweet. And in Brendan Behan's footsteps I danced up and down the streets. And we said good night to Broadway, giving our best regards. Tipped our hats to Mr. Cohan, dear old Times Square's favorite bar. And we raised his last to JFK and a dozen more besides. When I got back to my empty room, I suppose I must have cried. Thousands are sailing again across the ocean, where the hand of opportunity draws tickets in a lottery. Postcards were mailing us sky blue skies and oceans from rooms the daylight never sees, where lights don't glow on Christmas tree, but we'll dance to the music and we'll dance. And we'll dance to the music and we'll dance. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean, with a hand of opportunity draws tickets in a lottery. Where we go, we celebrate. The land makes us refugees from fear of priests with empty plates, from guilt and weeping effigies, and we'll dance. And we'll dance.
Ah, we danced.
What a great song. Excuse me, what a great song.
It's a
Great
great
song.
track. Thank you so much for everybody for hanging out with us this evening,
Cheers,
afternoon,
everyone.
morning, wherever it is you are. There is a subscribe button.
Ding!
Good. And the
Good job,
thumbs
Ronnie.
up button, which doesn't make a noise, and then the bell that actually does make a noise, but Ronnie never puts it in. Not since the last time.
Good old
It was a
Ronnie.
fiasco, he said. Ronnie was upset.
It's a tough job.
So thanks for hanging out with us.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you listening to us rant about Irish immigration and what it means to be whatever. And we hope you've enjoyed it and enjoyed our rendition of Thousands Are Sailing by the Pogues. Thanks so much for your support, and we'll see you next time, okay?
Cheers.
Bye.
Nice.
Something, effigies. My finger is all bloody. Change the strings on my guitar. Oh.